Days of Peace. The novel opens with a panoramic view of the serene, picturesque suburb of Willow Creek, an enclave just outside a bustling American city. Large oak trees line the wide, clean sidewalks, and manicured lawns stretch out in front of immaculate colonial-style houses. The community is known for its safety, close-knit feel, and the comfort it offers to families aspiring to the quintessential American dream. Emily Parker, in her late 30s, is introduced as a devoted mother and wife. She wakes up before sunrise, the soft golden light filtering through the sheer curtains of her tastefully decorated bedroom. The house exudes warmth. Family photos on the mantel, children's artwork on the fridge, and the faint aroma of fresh coffee from the open-concept kitchen. Her husband, David Parker, is a successful corporate executive, tall, charming, and well-respected in the community. He leaves for work each day in a tailored suit, exchanging a gentle kiss with Emily and a warm embrace with their 6-year-old daughter, Lily. David's affection appears genuine, and the family projects a harmonious image, both privately and in public. Emily's mornings are filled with small, joyful rituals, preparing Lily's favorite blueberry pancakes, chatting with other mothers while walking Lily to the local elementary school, tending to her rose garden, and organizing charity events for the community center. She is perceived as the heart of her neighborhood, admired for her kindness, gentle humor, and willingness to help those around her. Into this vibrant picture steps Sarah Thompson, Emily's childhood friend, who lives just a few blocks away. Sarah, confident and lively, is considered almost a member of the Parker family. She often stops by for lunch or coffee, sharing stories and laughter with Emily, deepening a friendship that spans decades. Their bond seems unbreakable. Together, they reminisce about college days, share parenting advice, and confide in one another their hopes and frustrations. Emily's sense of fulfillment is tangible. She occasionally reflects on her early years with David, their passionate courtship, the excitement of buying their first home, and the joy of welcoming Lily into their lives. There are moments, while watching Lily dance in the backyard or hosting summer barbecues brimming with laughter, when Emily feels a profound gratitude for the life she's built. Neighbors and friends see the Parkers as a model family, admired not only for their success, but also for their apparent closeness. Emily's days pass in rhythmic contentment, marked by routines that bring her comfort and pride. Beneath the surface, however, she sometimes entertains fleeting doubts. Moments when David seems distracted at dinner, or when Sarah's visits feel a little too spontaneous. Yet these thoughts are dismissed as mere figments of imagination, insignificant whispers beneath the music of a happy life. The chapter closes as dusk settles over Willow Creek, with Emily tucking Lily into bed and exchanging soft words of affection. She gazes out the window into the peaceful night, secure in the belief that her world is whole, her happiness unshakable, a gentle calm before the coming storm. The first crack, the peace and routine of Emily's days slowly begin to feel fragile, as small but unmistakable changes creep into her once harmonious world. It starts subtly, an undercurrent of tension, rather than any single dramatic event. At first, Emily cannot quite pinpoint what feels off, only that the world she takes such pride in seems to be shifting ever so slightly around her. David, once so attentive and open, grows more distracted. He spends longer hours at the office, often explaining away his late arrivals with vague mentions of urgent meetings or last minute business dinners. The easy conversations they used to share at the end of each day are replaced by silence or superficial small talk about Lily's schoolwork and upcoming community projects. Whenever Emily tries to engage him about their family or future plans, he seems evasive, his mind elsewhere. More troubling still, his phone, which once lay forgotten on the kitchen counter, now rarely leaves his side. He excuses himself to take calls in another room. Text notifications come in late at night, and David is quick to turn the screen away. Once, Emily glimpses his expression after one such message, a mixture of anxiety and guilt that disappears the instant he sees her watching. Sarah, too, begins to act out of character. Where their friendship was once relaxed and natural, Sarah's visits now feel more frequent and strangely timed. She drops by unexpectedly, sometimes arriving before David has even left for work. She seems a little on edge, her laughter too loud, her compliments to Emily overly effusive, her questions often personal or probing. She lingers in the kitchen when Emily is busy, offering to help with chores she never cared for before, occasionally glancing at the family calendar or around the living room, as if searching for something. What disturbs Emily most is the faint but growing sense of collusion between David and Sarah. She catches quick glances between them, half-finished sentences abruptly cut off when Emily enters a room, and a strange energy that wasn't there before. One morning, as she approaches the kitchen, she hears their voices in low conversation. Just a phrase or two before Sarah hurries out, cheeks flushed, mumbling a hasty goodbye. As these doubts grow, Emily struggles with her conscience. She's ashamed to suspect two of the people she loves and trusts most. Am I being paranoid? She chastises herself. Maybe I'm just tired. Maybe it's all in my head. She tries to push away the unease by throwing herself into household routines, play dates for Lily, and neighborhood events. Yet the anxiety lingers like a shadow she cannot outrun. At small group gatherings, Emily notices whispers that seem to trail off when she enters the room, side glances exchanged between neighbors whose loyalty she once took for granted. Even trivial incidents begin to take on outsized meaning. A missed call that cannot be explained. Sarah borrowing Emily's favorite scarf and never returning it. David rejecting Emily's invitation for a weekend getaway. After years of never missing such chances to reconnect. One sleepless night, Emily stands at her bedroom window, watching the street lamps glowing softly over Willow Creek. She hugs herself, feeling for the first time in years the sting of loneliness within the walls of her own home. What was once background noise, doubt, distrust, an inkling of betrayal, now rings louder by the day. By the end of the chapter, the first cracks in her once perfect life are unmistakable. Emily finds herself on edge, caught in a storm of suspicion and uncertainty, but telling no one. The chapter ends with her facing herself in the mirror before bed, determined to protect her family, yet afraid of what she might discover if she looks too closely at the truths lurking just beyond the peaceful surface, the naked truth. The tension that has shadowed Emily's days finally comes to a head. The signs are no longer just whispers in her mind, they begin to manifest in irrefutable ways. Emily, torn between denial and the need for clarity, resolves to find out the truth, no matter how much it hurts. It begins with a simple accident, a forgotten jacket draped over the back of a dining chair. Emily, tidying up before noon, finds David's phone nestled in the pocket. A rare occurrence, considering how attached he's been to it lately. A surge of anxiety and guilt washes over her as she debates whether to look. But the ache of uncertainty drowns out her reservations. Hands trembling, she unlocks the phone with the code she still remembers. What she first discovers are innocuous messages, work updates, family group chats. But then she finds a string of messages from an unsaved number, punctuated with heart emojis and inside jokes she doesn't understand. Emily scrolls, heart pounding, as the tone of the conversation grows unmistakably intimate. Attached photos, a snapshot of Sarah's car in a secluded parking lot, a blurry selfie of David and Sarah both smiling, leave no room for doubt. The world, for a moment, stops spinning. Emily sinks into the kitchen chair, phone clutched tightly, her breath ragged. The betrayal she hoped was only paranoia is now incontrovertible fact. Her husband, her closest friend, entwined in a secret world from which she has been ruthlessly excluded. Shock gives way to a piercing pain, to humiliation, to rage, and to a profound sense of grief. The familiar comfort of her home now feels tainted. Every shared meal, every school event, every backyard picnic replays in her mind, painted with new, darker colors. Was it all a lie? When did it begin? How could she, so meticulous, so attuned to the people she loved, not have seen it sooner? Determined to know the full extent, Emily begins to search for more evidence. She starts with the bank statements, finding mysterious charges, hotel bookings, gifts she never received. She remembers late-night calls David claimed were work emergencies, Sarah's cryptic apologies for missed plans, the odd familiarity in the way they sometimes avoided each other's gaze when all three were together. Emily's mind, once a haven of order and logic, now races with fragmented memories that start to make sense in the harsh light of betrayal. Shaken but resolute, Emily saves the exchanges from David's phone, careful to email copies to herself and photograph every damning detail. She gathers Sarah's recent texts, the times she asked if Emily would be out running errands, the way she always knew David's schedule without asking. Each piece falls into place, forming a mosaic of deceit so elaborate she feels physically ill. Meeting David's eyes that evening becomes impossible. Emily forces a smile, acting out the motions of a wife and mother, while her internal world breaks apart. She watches him and Sarah during a neighborhood barbecue, how they avoid each other, but with a deliberate, over-rehearsed distance that only someone in the know would recognize. Emily realizes that even their attempts at concealment have become their own kind of signal. That night, alone in her darkened bedroom, Emily finally allows herself to cry. She cries not only for the love she has lost, but for the trust, the friendship, the sense of safety that has been ripped away. There is no one she can turn to, not in David's family, who would never believe her accusations, not in her own, who live far away and could not understand the depth of her devastation. Sleep eludes her. Instead, she writes, capturing every detail, every suspicion, every concrete scrap of evidence, turning pain into documentation. The act is both cathartic and purposeful. Emily knows that going forward, she will need proof. The chapter closes in the hush before dawn. Emily stands before the bathroom mirror, her eyes rimmed red but her jaw set. She is changed, no longer the blissful, content wife of Willow Creek, but a woman betrayed, forged in heartbreak. As the first light of morning breaks, she makes a silent promise to herself. She will not let this be the end of her story. The truth, though raw and cruel, is now hers to wield, and she will decide what to do with it. Betrayed and isolated. The days following Emily's discovery unravel with agonizing slowness. Each hour weighed down by the knowledge she now carries alone. The world outside her door continues as if nothing has changed. Sunlight dapples the manicured lawns, children cycle along the quiet streets, and neighbors wave cheerfully during morning walks. Inside the Parker house, however, time has split in two, before and after the naked truth. Emily tries, at first, to hold herself together. She goes through the motions, making breakfast for Lily and packing her school lunch, tending to her garden, attending neighborhood committees, as if nothing has shifted in her reality. But beneath the surface, she feels like a ghost haunting her own life, watching play-acted scenes of domestic bliss from behind frosted glass. With David, the charade continues. He's careful, attentive even, as if sensing something has changed. His eyes linger on Emily a little longer, his touches more deliberate, yet she knows these gestures are only a shield, a hoped-for return to normalcy. In rare, unguarded moments, she sees the tension tightening his jaw, the flicker of guilt, but as soon as she meets his gaze, he looks away. Conversation is polite, shallow, and functional, as if unspoken rules now dictate what can and cannot be said. The real test comes when she must face David's family. The Parkers gather for a family Sunday dinner at his parents' stately home, a ritual Emily has never missed. David's mother, a woman of sharp intelligence and social grace, greets her with a cool, searching look. Emily, tentative, broaches her suspicions, careful not to accuse outright, but to voice her pain. Lately, I felt a distance between David and me, and with Sarah. I can't help but worry something isn't right, she says, her voice measured, almost pleading for understanding. But the room falls cold. David's mother's eyes narrow. Emily, you're imagining things again. David works so hard for this family. And Sarah, she's practically a sister to you. Are you sure you aren't overreacting? David's father, usually reserved, adds gently, marriage is challenging, especially with children. Sometimes it's best not to let your imagination run wild. His tone is kind, yet the implicit message is clear. The fault lies with her. Throughout dinner, Emily feels exposed. Every glance, every half-hidden smile, seeming to mock her. Later, when she tries to reach out to David's sister for comfort, she is met with incredulity. David would never do something like that. Sarah? No way. Maybe you just need some rest. The verdict is unanimous. Her worries are dismissed as paranoia or insecurity. Instead of support, she meets a wall of denial, subtle suspicion, and thinly veiled blame. Her attempts to explain only isolate her further, a wedge driven between herself and the community of a family she once called her own. Meanwhile, Sarah's presence in Emily's life becomes more oppressive. The overt friendliness that once marked their friendship now feels intrusive, calls at odd hours, unexpected knocks at the door, offers of help that never feel quite genuine. Sarah spins her own narrative, quietly undermining Emily's credibility. At the local coffee shop, a favorite of the Willow Creek wives, Emily overhears Sarah confiding in a mutual friend. Emily's been so stressed lately. She's always suspicious, always doubting David. I worry about her. Maybe she's not coping well. The rumor mill in Willow Creek is well oiled, and soon whispers about Emily's supposed instability spread. At playdates and PTA meetings, conversations drift away when she enters. Some parents avoid eye contact. Others offer empty pleasantries before making quick excuses to leave. Emily feels her world shrinking. Every aspect of daily life, from school drop-offs to grocery shopping, is tinged with a sense of scrutiny. She catches neighbors lowering their voices, sees text messages snap shut as she approaches. She is no longer Emily Parker, the anchor of the community and perfect wife, but rather the subject of quiet speculation and growing pity. The pain of betrayal now amplifies into profound loneliness. At night, lying awake while David's breathing steadies beside her, Emily clings to the edge of the mattress, as if mere inches can preserve her dignity. The person she once confided in about her fears is now the source of those fears. The friend who was once her ally is now an architect of her isolation. As days pass, Emily's position in the family dynamic unravels further. Lily, too young to understand, senses a new tension. She clings more closely to Emily in the mornings, asks again and again if she and Daddy are still happy, her wide eyes searching for reassurance. Emily answers with practiced warmth, but knows that children feel what is hidden even more keenly than what is said aloud. Desperate to regain some measure of control, Emily reaches out to her own family, her parents and an older brother, living several states away. On video calls, she tries to explain, but the details sound hollow, even to her own ears. It's complicated. I think David is not honest. And Sarah, she's not the friend I thought she was. Her mother's face crumples with worry and helplessness. You know you can always come home, sweetheart. We're here, whatever you decide. The offer is comforting, but not a solution. Emily's life, Lily's school, everything that matters is here in Willow Creek. With each passing week, Emily's world contracts further. The absence of support from David's family and the erosion of trust within her neighborhood leave her more alone than she's ever been. She begins keeping a journal, writing late into the night, her fears, her suspicions, the smallest interactions that feel significant in isolation. The act gives her some relief, a way to organize her thoughts and shore up her sense of self. when everything else feels uncertain. She also starts paying close attention to Sarah's every move and David's subtle changes. With an analytical precision born of desperation, she tracks strange phone calls, receipts for unfamiliar restaurants, and times David leaves the house without a clear reason. She is careful to hide her methods, erasing browser histories and locking away her notes. The isolation makes her hypervigilant. She trusts no one, not even her own instincts at times. But she knows she must rely on herself. Emily's emotional turmoil gives way to a grim determination. The grief of betrayal and abandonment by her new family is still raw, but she channels that pain into a resolve to survive. If no one in Willow Creek will stand by her, then she will stand on her own. The chapter closes on a cold, quiet evening. Emily stands once again at her bedroom window, watching the golden lights flicker in the homes around her, families gathering for dinner, laughter ringing through open windows. She hugs herself against the chill, her reflection a figure caught between two worlds, the faithful wife who has lost nearly everything, and the woman steeling herself to fight for what remains. She knows the path ahead will be lonely, but in her growing solitude, a spark of defiance flickers. The first flash of the woman she will become, choosing to rise. For days, Emily moves through her house on autopilot, weighed down by sorrow, but refusing to be completely crushed. Each morning, she pastes on a smile for Lily, ties her daughter's shoes, and braids her hair before school, while inside, a silent battle rages between despair and a fledgling sense of resolve. The gut-wrenching isolation from David's family, the betrayal by her closest friend, and the hushed whispers in Willow Creek had all left her battered. Yet somewhere beneath the pain, an ember of determination begins to glow. It is during a quiet afternoon, Lily at a classmate's birthday party, the house unusually silent, that clarity finally settles over Emily. She stands in the kitchen, sunlight dappling the floor, the faint sound of a neighbor mowing their lawn drifting through the window. Staring at her hands, she realizes that if she continues to shrink and hide, she will lose everything that matters. Not just her marriage, but her very sense of self. Surrendering is not an option, at least not for Lily's sake. If no one else will rescue her, she must save herself. Her first step is to seek guidance beyond the walls that have turned against her. After days of hesitation and countless drafts left in her email outbox, Emily contacts an attorney recommended by a distant college friend, someone outside the gossipy reach of Willow Creek. The conversation is professional but surprisingly gentle. The lawyer, Donna Maxwell, listens quietly as Emily describes her story, then assures her she is not alone nor powerless. "Documentation is your shield, Emily," Donna says. "Knowledge and proof put you back in control." The words land with unexpected comfort. That evening, Emily sets to work. She retrieves her worn notebook, the same one she had used to record her suspicions in the dark nights, and copies every significant detail into cloud-based files. She sorts screenshots, notes dates and times, and organizes her digital cache of incriminating texts and photos. She scans old receipts, logs phone records, and downloads bank statements, carefully marking mysterious hotel charges and out-of-place expenses. Though the work is excruciating, each piece of evidence brings a strange measure of strength. Next, Emily consults a therapist, not just for herself, but to anchor Lily through the rolling storm. Dr. Harris, compassionate and direct, encourages Emily to rebuild faith in her own perceptions. Therapy becomes a lifeline, offering Emily moments of emotional honesty away from judgment. Some sessions focus on the practical, how to keep Lily's daily routine steady, how to shield her daughter from adult concerns. Others dive beneath the surface, into Emily's battered confidence, her anger at David's duplicity, and the sorrow of losing her chosen family. Little by little, the shame of betrayal is replaced by a new narrative, one where acknowledging pain is an act of courage, not defeat. Support also comes from surprising places. Emily reconnects with her college best friend, Julia Nguyen, now living across the country, but just a video call away. Julia is instantly protective and unwavering. "You are not crazy, Em. You are brave. Trust yourself," she repeats, grounding Emily during sleepless nights. Emily also finds discreet allies in Willow Creek, old acquaintances who, sensing her struggle, offer small acts of solidarity, an extra coffee left on her doorstep, a gentle squeeze of her hand after PTA meetings. Empowered by these new lifelines, Emily's daily choices grow bolder. Where anxiety once kept her bound to her house, she now spends time researching divorce laws, documenting every awkward interaction with Sarah and David, and journaling shifts in Lily's mood and behavior. She keeps her routine for her daughter's sake, helping with homework, cheering from the sidelines at soccer games, and making Saturday pancakes. But her gaze is sharper, her questions more probing. One rainy morning, as David lingers at breakfast, making casual conversation, Emily studies him with a new detachment. She notes the way he's suddenly attentive. A calculated overcorrection, not genuine warmth. Sarah, too, grows uneasy. Her calls and visits have become more restrained. Sometimes she leaves as soon as she walks in, eyes darting nervously. Emily logs these encounters, her patience shifting from desperate hope to cold strategy. Throughout this transformation, moments of vulnerability resurface. There are nights when the weight of isolation is unbearable, when even holding a pen or staring at her reflection brings her to tears. But Emily allows herself these moments without shame, understanding that sorrow and strength can coexist. On such nights, she writes letters to her future self, describing her fears and hopes. One entry reads, "I'm still standing. For Lily, for my own heart, I will not let them erase me." As the weeks pass, Emily constructs a plan. She and Donna sketch out possible legal scenarios, how joint custody might play out, what to expect if David's family intervenes, how to navigate mediation if needed. Emily learns the importance of clear timelines, of presenting facts without emotional outburst. She files her evidence away with care, making backup copies, and creates a private email account for confidential correspondence. Gradually, the defensive crouch, with which she once faced the world uncoils. At a neighborhood board meeting, Emily speaks up for the first time in weeks, pushing past cool stares and whispered judgments. Her voice does not waver. She advocates for a school safety initiative without referring to her personal pain, demonstrating the poised strength that once made her the community's linchpin. For a moment, she almost feels like herself again. One by one, Emily's choices break her isolation. She establishes boundaries with David, polite but impersonal, refusing to feed into his attempts at small talk or manufactured concern. With Sarah, she is coolly civil, ending any conversation that veers into false comfort or gossip. She returns the borrowed scarf that Sarah never returned, a silent declaration of independence. Emily also prepares for the public unveiling of the truth. She reaches out to school counselors, ready to advocate for Lily if rumors spread. She assembles a folder of resources on single parenting, finances, and mental health. Her home, once a fortress of routine, now disciplined by necessity, becomes the launchpad for her new future. The chapter closes as Emily sits at her kitchen table late at night, a single desk lamp illuminating the stacks of carefully organized files. The house is asleep and silent, the outside world shrouded in darkness. But Emily is alert, awake in every sense. She reviews her plan, checking each detail again, her every action now guided by purpose instead of panic. The ache of betrayal is still there, but it is no longer her entire story. She draws in a slow, deep breath and feels the pulse of her own willpower. Tomorrow, she will move from defense to action. The tide, at last, is turning, exposing the truth. The first rays of dawn find Emily already awake, her determination sharper than the bite of early autumn air. The weeks of silent gathering, documenting, and soul-searching have crystallized into a firm resolve. Today, she will no longer shield herself or her daughter from the reality that has gnawed away their foundation. The burden of secrecy has become heavier than the threat of upheaval, and Emily knows she has reached the point of no return. This is the day the truth must see the light. Emily crafts her approach with the care of someone who understands just how high the stakes are. One misstep, she knows, could see her painted permanently as unstable or vindictive, but she has learned to value facts over feelings. That morning, while Lily is at school, she sits at her meticulously organized kitchen table, scanning the copies of messages, phone records, photographs, and her personal logs. Her attorney, Donna Maxwell, is just a call away, ready to step in as soon as the first domino falls. Her plan begins with the people closest to the heart of the storm, David and Sarah. She waits until late afternoon, when she knows Lily will be occupied at her piano lesson, and texts David and Sarah separately to meet her at the house. The requests are innocuous. "I'd like to talk," she writes, "about the future." She notices that both are quick to confirm. Perhaps they sense that something is about to shift. At 4 o'clock, Sarah arrives first, her face tense but still masked with the brittle cheeriness that once comforted Emily. David arrives moments later, his confidence muted, his usual charm subdued. The three of them sit in the living room, once the setting for fireside chats and echoes of laughter. now charged with tension so thick it steals the air from the room. Emily does not waste time with small talk. She opens her laptop and quietly, systematically lays out the evidence: text messages, emails, credit charges, and photographs. She reads aloud excerpts from David and Sarah's private conversations, omitting, for now, the cruelest details to keep the focus precise and irrefutable. Sarah's hand trembles as she clutches her phone, her eyes darting to the door, while David's face goes blanched, the weight of guilt settling visibly in his shoulders. For a long moment, no one speaks. Finally, David stammers an apology, his voice brittle, but Emily cuts him off. "This isn't about apologies," she says, calm but relentless. "This is about acknowledgement. This is about what comes next. For me, for Lily, for all of us." It's the first time Sarah truly breaks. She bursts into tears, hiding her face in her hands, while David stares at the carpet, shame seeping from every pore. Emily watches, her own emotions dulled by months of acute pain. She feels only relief and a faint, growing pride at her collected poise. She tells them, "I want you both to know I'm not running and I am not staying silent." The conversation ends not with fireworks, but with the hollow finality of a truth fully surrendered to gravity. David leaves, shoulders slouched, Sarah trailing behind like a vanquished shadow of their once colorful friendship. This first confrontation, however necessary, is only the beginning. Emily knows that information has a way of rippling outward, and she intends to control as much of that narrative as possible. That evening, she drafts a careful message, a blend of forthrightness and restraint, addressed to David's family, her own parents and brother, and a select handful of Willow Creek's most influential neighbors. In the email, she lays out the facts: the evidence of infidelity, the impact on her and Lily, her intent to pursue legal separation, and her plea for respect for all parties, especially their child. She attaches redacted screenshots and politely asks for privacy, but she makes no apologies for defending her and Lily's future. She sends the email, heart pounding, then sits in the quiet for several minutes, hands shaking. The messages begin to flood in almost immediately. Some family members respond with stunned silence, others with anger or disbelief. David's mother replies curtly, struggling to accept the truth, while his sister's response is unexpectedly supportive. "I'm so sorry, Emily. I wish I'd known. Let me know how I can help." Her own brother phones instantly, his voice brimming with worry but also pride. "You did the right thing. You did the hard thing. We're behind you." The next phase, addressing the community, is even more daunting. The web of rumor in Willow Creek is dense, and Emily knows that left unchecked, gossip could devour her reputation and Lily's sense of safety. She asks the principal at Lily's elementary school for a private meeting. There, with measured composure, she outlines what has happened, not in gory detail, but in clear enough terms to emphasize the importance of shielding Lily from schoolyard whispers and careless talk among the adults. The principal agrees to discreetly monitor the situation, promising to direct any concerns to Emily. Emily also meets with a small group of mothers she once trusted. She chooses her words carefully, explaining, "I know there are rumors. I only ask that you remember my family is hurting and that you help protect Lily." I'm asking for discretion, not pity. There are awkward silences and sidelong glances, but a few women express honest sympathy. One, who had herself survived a public divorce, squeezes Emily's hand and says, "If you need anything, a meal, a ride for Lily, even a place to vent, I'm here." With each act, Emily feels the shame and fear that had paralyzed her being replaced by a steely certainty. There are painful conversations, tears, arguments, angry denial. Sarah attempts to contact Emily repeatedly, but receives only a single, succinct reply. "Please respect my boundaries. I wish you peace, but I need space." David begs for another chance, professing regret, but Emily has resolved that her path now branches away from his. The impact on the broader community follows quickly. Some neighbors begin keeping their distance, uncomfortable with the crack in the facade they have all taken for granted. Others rally around privately, dropping off supportive notes or casseroles unannounced, the old codes of suburban sympathy. There are still cruel whispers, but their sting grows dull as Emily remembers her worth is not defined by gossip. Throughout this process, Emily keeps a running log for Donna, her attorney, who is preparing the next legal steps. By speaking her truth first and documenting her intentions, Emily fortifies herself against attempts to twist the narrative. At home, she and Lily devise new routines, movie nights, baking sessions, days at the park that reinforce their bond and create a sense of normalcy amidst chaos. On a cold, starless night, Emily sits at her desk and writes the final entry in the old leather-bound journal where she had recorded every suspicion and heartbreak. She starts a new notebook, this one for plans, goals, small dreams for a future that no longer feels lost. As she closes her laptop and dims the lights, she feels, for the first time in a long while, an immense weight lifting. The truth, at last, is not a blade at her back, but a torch in her hand. The legal battle. The day Emily files for divorce dawns gray and drizzly, as if the weather itself senses the gravity of what lies ahead. It marks a threshold, not just in her marriage, but in the very fabric of her life. The simple act of handing over a sheaf of signed paperwork in Donna Maxwell's tidy law office feels both anticlimactic and monumental. Years of devotion distilled down to forms, signatures, and itemized lists filed with the county court. But Emily barely has time to process the emotional fallout before the reality of litigation descends upon her. What unfolds is nothing like the orderly process she once imagined. Instead, she finds herself thrust into a relentless chess game where every move is strategic and every expression carefully measured. Donna's advice is uncompromising. Keep everything documented. Don't respond to provocations. Let the court see you as the parent who maintains stability and chooses civility no matter what. Armed with binders of evidence and steeled by weeks of anticipation, Emily braces herself for the grueling months to come. The onset, custody at stake. The first salvo comes in the form of a sharply worded petition from David's lawyer contesting Emily's request for full custody of Lily. David intends, the filing claims, to remain a devoted present father. He believes joint custody is in Lily's best interest. The words sting less for their legal content than the implication that Emily is unreasonable, vindictive, or somehow unfit. Emily sits in Donna's office, reading the document line by line. "Don't panic," Donna reassures her. "This is standard. but it means we'll need to prove not just the affair, but that you are the more stable, nurturing parent, especially since David's family is well off and well connected. As word of the legal proceedings spreads, lines in Willow Creek harden. Some neighbors, previously sympathetic, withdraw or hedge their support, anxious not to be dragged into any battle involving social status or reputations. David's parents hire their own legal counsel and unofficially suggest that unless Emily wants to be reasonable, they'll fight her access to family resources and even visitation. Emily's allies, her therapists, school counselors, trusted friends, and Donna help her focus on what really matters: Lily's welfare. With their guidance, she builds a portfolio of her life as a mother, calendars, rich with playdates and school events, pediatrician records, even the storybooks she's read to Lily at bedtime, many already frayed at the edges from use. She collects glowing notes from teachers and coaches and detailed logs of Lily's adjustment since the separation. Financial warfare. If custody is the heart of the legal battle, financial division is its cold, calculating mind. Emily is stunned by the sheer complexity, lists of assets, intricate financial disclosures, the parsing of every bank account, 401k, insurance policy, and mortgage statement. There are child support calculators, dispute over Lily's tuition fund, even arguments about who is entitled to the family's summer cabin. David, for his part, seems at times remorseful, offering settlements, only to retract them after consulting his legal team or following a tense phone call with his parents. One day, he drops off a coloring book for Lily, making small talk as if nothing is amiss. The next, she'll receive curt emails from his attorney, accusing her of creating an adversarial environment. The whiplash leaves Emily mentally and physically exhausted. On Donna's advice, Emily hires a forensic accountant to go over their finances. The discovery of unreported stock options and hidden accounts, funds David had quietly set aside, only magnifies her determination to fight for a fair arrangement. Each new revelation chips away at the trust that little remained, but at the same time, she emerges sharper, no longer second-guessing her reality. The courtroom trenches. The day of the first court hearing is nothing like the dramas on television. The room is small, the judge every bit as brisk and unsentimental as Donna had warned. David sits across from her, his eyes fixed somewhere over her shoulder. Sarah doesn't attend, but her presence lingers in the depositions and timelines, unspoken but unavoidable. In court, every detail matters. Donna presents their meticulously organized evidence. Emily's documentation of David's absences, texts between David and Sarah, bank statements, cross-referenced by date. The courtroom is not a place for catharsis. There is no time for speeches or moral outrage. Only facts. Only logic. David's legal team counters with their own parade of character witnesses, including a neighbor who, Emily later learns, was once mentored by David's father. The proceedings are sometimes humiliating, a cross-examination about Emily's ability to maintain Lily's schedule, whispered suggestions of instability, subtle digs at her raising concerns about Sarah. But Emily stands firm, drawing strength from her support system and her own shifting self-perception. And as Donna assures her, judges see through performance. They care about patterns, consistency, who provides day-to-day stability for the child. Lily, the unseen battleground. Throughout it, all Emily's greatest concern is Lily. The process is confusing for her daughter, who knows only that both mommy and daddy seem constantly busy and that her world feels less steady than before. Emily shields her from legal talk, leaning on school counselors and Dr. Harris to help Lily process the changes as gently as possible. Emily makes a habit of listening, truly listening, to Lily's worries about friends, about school, about her doll missing a shoe. She crafts new routines, movie nights on Fridays, pancake breakfasts on Saturdays, walks to the park every Sunday, all designed to anchor Lily in a reality where, despite everything, she remains loved and protected. Turning the tide months pass, and the legal struggle wears everyone thin. New evidence emerges, an email from Sarah to David, inadvertently left in a shared cloud folder, that further undermines David's testimony about the start and severity of the affair. The judge becomes visibly skeptical about David's timeline and, more importantly, about the wisdom of shared custody. As winter approaches, settlement talks resume in earnest. Under pressure from his own team, anxious to avoid protracted litigation, David agrees to mediation, and his parents, facing their own professional embarrassment, quietly withdraw some of their more aggressive objections. In mediation, Emily holds her ground. With Donna at her side, she negotiates for primary custody of Lily, a fair share of assets, and measures to ensure Lily's schooling and home life remain as stable as possible. David, subdued and defeated, signs the agreement. The aftermath. Emily walks out of the courthouse into crisp, bright sunlight. For the first time in months, she feels the smallest flicker of freedom. The legal battle was grueling, emotionally, financially, spiritually, but she never wavered from her primary goal: to protect her daughter and to reclaim her own narrative. At home, as she hangs up her coat, Emily looks around the quiet house. There is no fanfare, no dramatic reversal, only the quiet aftermath and the beginnings of a new life built on hard-won clarity, resilience, and the unassailable love between a mother and her child. This is not the end, she thinks, as she gathers Lily into her arms. But finally, a new beginning. Regaining justice. The courthouse feels colder on the morning of the final hearing, its marble floors echoing with the measured footfalls of lawyers, clerks, and those whose lives are about to be changed inside its walls. Emily sits in a corridor outside the courtroom, her hands tight around a thermos of coffee, Donna Maxwell by her side. The slow burn of anxiety is familiar by now, but underneath it lies something new, a whisper of hope, a belief that her fight might finally bring something resembling justice. Inside, the atmosphere is tense but oddly subdued. David sits at the plaintiff's table, flanked by his attorney, and farther behind, his parents. Less imposing than before, their gazes wary. Sarah is absent. Whispers suggest the scandal has left her isolated. Facing consequences Emily had once feared would never come. The judge, brisk and no nonsense, reviews sheets of paperwork, while the two legal teams prepare their final arguments. Emily's mind races through all that has brought her here: the months of betrayals unearthed, the sleepless nights spent collecting evidence, organizing files, and tending to Lily's shaken routines. She remembers feeling overlooked and cast aside, her pain dismissed as insecurity or melodrama. But now she sees that persistence has weight: careful documentation, quiet dignity amid hostility, and an unwavering focus on Lily's best interests have built an unshakable case. When court is called to order, Donna's presentation is methodical and respectful. She lays out the timeline of events, avoiding melodrama. Instead, she lets the facts, bank records, hotel receipts, text messages, accounts of absences, and unmet responsibilities speak for themselves. Witnesses include Lily's teachers, who describe Emily's attentiveness as a mother, and a counselor who vouches for Emily's efforts to stabilize her daughter's emotional life. David's team tries once more to frame Emily as inflexible and vindictive, claims easily refuted by a string of meticulously logged communications and clear patterns of her attempts at civilized, fair compromise. His parents stand as character witnesses, but for the first time, there is less heat in their defense. Their words coming with a defensiveness that underscores the damage already done. At the heart of it all, Emily watches her daughter through the glass windows of the playroom in a nearby hallway, coloring quietly under the supervision of a court-appointed counselor. Knowing Lily is safe gives Emily added resolve. As closing statements wrap, the judge retires to deliberate. The wait, lasting little more than an hour, feels almost surreal in its stillness. Donna speaks quietly about possible outcomes, but Emily can hardly hear her. All that matters is Lily, her well-being, her future. For the first time, Emily lets herself imagine a life unburdened by secrets and suspicion. Finally, the doors open. The judge re-enters, her gaze stern, yet not unkind. The verdict, delivered in an even, unembellished tone, is decisive. Emily is granted primary custody of Lily, with David accorded structured visitation rights, but required to adhere to rules on attendance and communication. The marital assets are divided equitably, but a greater share, including the family home, goes to Emily to ensure stability for her child. There is also a quiet admonishment to David about honesty and parental responsibility. The courtroom is still for a moment, the weight of finality settling over everyone. David's lawyer leans close to whisper in his ear, and his parents avert their eyes. Emily doesn't react outwardly, but she feels the tremor of tension release inside her chest. Across the aisle, she almost expects David to rage or protest. Instead, he seems smaller now, deflated, unable to look her in the eye. Outside, in the corridor, Emily calls her own parents with the news. Her mother weeps, her father's voice thick with pride. Julia, her steadfast friend, sends a message filled with exclamation points and hearts. "You did it, Em. You did it," she writes. The support feels real, earned not through dramatic declarations, but through quiet tenacity. Returning home that evening, Emily finds Lily curled up on the living room sofa, reading to her favorite stuffed animal. She opens her arms, and Lily bounds into her embrace, asking, "Are we going to stay here, Mommy?" Emily hugs her daughter fiercely, whispering, "Yes, sweetheart. We're home. We're safe." But the story is not only Emily's. In the wake of the trial, the consequences ripple outward. Word spreads through Willow Creek, at first in cautious whispers, then in candid conversations as the facts become impossible to refute. Sarah, once the golden confidant, finds herself quietly shunned by many, rumors giving way to cold shoulders and lost invitations. David's professional life falters. His reputation, so carefully maintained, now bears the stain of exposure. Even his parents, long accustomed to directing the currents of social opinion, must retreat from the public eye, their certainty replaced with the awkwardness of humility. Yet as Emily sweeps through her own house that night, she is less concerned with the public's reaction than with her family's healing. She spends the weekend reinforcing Lily's sense of security, planting autumn bulbs in the backyard, hosting a movie marathon on Saturday night, baking cinnamon rolls on Sunday morning. Each act is both ordinary and radical, building the foundation for the life she has fought so hard to preserve. Emily is not untouched by what has happened. She carries the bruises of betrayal, the lines of exhaustion on her face, the scars of battle in her heart. But in the stillness of her room, as she journals her thoughts and replays the judge's words in her mind, she feels the return of something she once thought lost: self-respect. It comes not from the victory itself, but from the knowledge that she chose truth, that she fought with both intellect and compassion, and that she refused to hand over her narrative to those who tried to silence her. Life outside the courtroom does not revert to some fairy tale ideal. There are difficult days, reminders of wounds not yet healed, triggers in an unguarded glance, or the routine of shared custody exchanges. But Emily faces each new challenge with a resilience forged in the crucible of loss and recovery. She seeks further support from therapy, builds stronger bonds with trustworthy neighbors, and opens the possibility of new friendships. Slowly, even the dinner table, once heavy with loneliness, becomes a place for laughter and honest conversation again. As autumn deepens, Emily finds herself walking hand in hand with Lily along a leaf-strewn park path. The ache of the past lingers, but the air feels lighter, promising. Emily smiles at her daughter, who skips ahead to gather acorns, and for the first time in many months, she allows herself to savor the quiet justice of having stood up for herself, of having chosen and won her family's future. A new beginning. In the weeks that follow the final verdict, the air in Willow Creek turns crisp with the promise of change. For the first time in months, the Parker house feels like a safe haven. Sunlight pours through the windows, warming the kitchen where Emily now takes comfort in the ordinary rituals of daily life. The pain of the past clings in fragments, like stubborn cobwebs in unseen corners. But Emily is firm in her resolve. This chapter begins on her own terms. At first, the silence feels strange. There are no more whispered arguments, no constant vigilance, no pretending. For Emily, each morning becomes an act of quiet reclamation. She wakes early, not out of anxiety or force of habit, but from genuine anticipation for what lies ahead. She relishes making breakfast with Lily, letting her crack eggs and stir batter, allowing the messes that once made her anxious. Their laughter fills the house, richer now because it feels unburdened by secrets. Lily adapts quickly, her innate resilience shining through as the routines shift and settle. She likes that Emily walks her to school without being distracted by her phone or hidden stress. In the afternoons, they develop new rituals, tending the small flower beds out front, reading together in the hammock, baking treats for neighbors who dared to show kindness when things were hard. Each day, Emily sees Lily's spirit brightening, her trust in the world blooming anew. Their bond, tested, stretched, and finally set free, grows stronger than ever, yet new beginnings are never entirely smooth. Emily feels the ache of loss most sharply at unexpected moments. A framed photo in the hallway, a song that echoes memories of family road trips, the empty place at the dinner table. She gives herself permission to grieve, to feel the full weight of what's gone without letting it define her days. On some evenings, after Lily is in bed, Emily sits by the window and lets herself cry. She no longer fears these tears. They are honest, cleansing, and as necessary as all the joys she is allowing herself to rediscover. As solitary as some moments are, Emily does not retreat into isolation. Instead, she actively reaches out, rebuilding her social world on her own terms. Julia, her fierce and loyal friend, remains a constant presence, texting and calling, encouraging Emily to think about the future rather than just surviving the present. With Julia's prodding, Emily agrees to a monthly book club and later a weekend pottery class at the community center. In these spaces, she rediscovers her voice, finding companionship not dependent on shared history, but on mutual respect and curiosity. Emily also mends certain bridges in Willow Creek. She gradually re-engages with neighborhood events, not for appearances, but for genuine connection. She volunteers for the fall festival and helps organize a food drive, surprising herself with her willingness to step back into the public eye. Some people remain distant, perhaps uncomfortable, perhaps ashamed, but a few women approach Emily quietly, offering apologies for past doubts or passive silence. She accepts their words, not out of duty, but as an act of grace, choosing to leave behind bitterness, to make room for gentler things. Financially and practically, a new order emerges. The house is now hers and Lily's, stripped of the veneer of perfection, but filled with honest, lived-in warmth. Emily deals with logistics methodically, budgeting for a single income, handling home repairs, and navigating weekends when Lily is away with David. The first few father-daughter visits are fraught with worry, but Emily trusts Lily's intuition and prioritizes open dialogue above all. They talk things through, her fears, Lily's questions, and even the small hurts that still linger. Through each hard conversation, Emily models the openness and self-respect she wants for her daughter. David and Sarah, meanwhile, have been relegated to the periphery of Emily's consciousness. Emily hears rumors, David struggling to regain his footing at work, Sarah rarely seen around the neighborhood. Emily feels no satisfaction, only a distant sympathy and a sense of boundaries finally being respected. She recognizes that forgiveness does not mean forgetting, nor does it require her to invite past sources of pain back into her life. Instead, she honors her journey by refusing to let old wounds control her present. As the autumn deepens, Emily finds new joy in small adventures with Lily, crisp weekend hikes, exploring local museums, and spontaneous ice cream trips after school. They design family days just for the two of them, filled with crafts, silly games, and traditions of their own making. Each act of creation, no matter how simple, becomes a symbolic brick in the foundation of the life Emily is building. Within herself, Emily recognizes the tectonic shift, the movement from mere survival to intentional growth. She returns to journaling, this time with pages devoted to gratitude, hopes, and plans rather than only pain. On weekends, when Lily is with David, Emily allows herself time for solitude, walks in the park, quiet mornings with coffee and a novel, and sometimes contemplative drives with the windows down and music turned up. She finds comfort in her own company, slowly rediscovering dreams that had been deferred or lost. One unexpected Saturday, after a morning of errands, Emily runs into a new neighbor at the corner cafe. Matthew is a recent arrival in Willow Creek, a single father with an easy smile and an awkward, earnest charm. Their conversation is light but sincere, grounded in shared experiences of rebuilding after loss. There are no expectations, no instant spark of romance, but Emily feels a small flutter of possibility, permission to look toward the future, to believe in gentle beginnings, whatever they may be. As winter approaches, Emily decorates her home for the season with Lily, stringing lights along the porch and baking gingerbread together. On the night of the town's annual Christmas parade, mother and daughter snuggle under thick blankets by their front window. Watching the floats shimmer by, the warmth in the room is deeper than any fireplace could provide. It is the warmth of survival, of chosen family, of starting over not by erasing the past, but by building something better atop its lessons. Before bedtime, as Emily tucks Lily in, her daughter whispers, "I like our new life, Mommy." The words fill Emily's heart with something close to peace. Though the journey is unfinished and challenges remain, mother and child have come through the storm together, not unscarred, but undeniably whole. In the quiet that follows, Emily steps outside and gazes at the starlit sky. Her future still uncertain, but no longer a void. She smiles softly, a silent vow to herself, echoing in the stillness. Whatever comes next, I'm not afraid to begin again, closing the past. Winter in Willow Creek settles slowly and gently. Snow transforms the familiar streets, draping fences and rooftops with a hush that seems to draw a soft veil over the memories of the past year. For Emily, the first true snow feels like the universe itself is pressing pause, a moment to breathe, to reflect, to truly let go. The holidays come and go in a flurry of new traditions. Emily and Lily string paper snowflakes in every window, bake cookies for the neighbors, and spend long evenings curled up together with storybooks and peppermint tea. David arrives promptly for his scheduled weekend visitations, and while the exchanges are always brief and quietly awkward, Emily finds that the bitterness she once felt has faded into a gentle detachment. She is polite, firm, and focused on Lily, knowing that anger has lost its utility and that boundaries best protect not only her heart, but her new, hard-won peace. One cold afternoon, as she organizes old family albums in the attic, Emily stumbles upon photos from the early days. Her wedding, Lily as a toddler, summers and birthdays all preserved in glossy color. For a long moment, she sits amid the cardboard boxes in her soft wool sweater, staring at faces that feel both familiar and impossibly distant. She allows herself to mourn what truly was, not only the trauma and loss, but the happiness and hope that had once existed without pretense. There is no denying the sadness, But there is no bitterness either, just gratitude for the experiences that shaped her, and a quiet acceptance that some chapters, no matter how beautiful or painful, aren't meant to last forever. Emily decides to pack away the albums, not as a way of hiding her history, but as a gesture of closure. She makes space on her shelves for new memories: photos of Lily at her first soccer game, cards sent by new friends, a clay sculpture from her recent pottery class. The physical act of clearing out and reordering her possessions becomes a metaphor for her emotional work, honoring the past, making deliberate choices about what to keep, and gently releasing the rest. Solitude visits Emily frequently, but instead of loneliness, she now experiences it as rare quietude, time to garden, to read, to sit with her thoughts without fear. She journals in the early mornings, reflecting on lessons learned, the nature of trust, the necessity of resilience, the surprising power of kindness. Through therapy, she comes to see herself not as a casualty of betrayal, but as someone who has survived and grown stronger for it. She forgives her former self for missed signs and misplaced faith, and by forgiving herself, she opens space for true compassion, not just for her, but for David, for Sarah, even for those who judged her harshly during the storm. Lily thrives in her mother's new world, a world built on truth and openness. The little girl's laughter comes quick and easy, her questions direct and never discouraged. Every Sunday night, after returning from David's, she climbs into Emily's bed and recounts her weekend, never censored, never made to choose sides. Emily listens without judgment, always offering the same reassurance. You are loved, you are safe here, your feelings matter. In the warmth of these bedtime rituals, both mother and daughter discover the healing power of trust rebuilt, one conversation at a time. Gradually, Emily reconnects with old friends she once thought lost. An unexpected lunch invitation arrives from Sarah, now living in another neighborhood and carrying her own burdens of regret. Emily hesitates, but after days of contemplation, she accepts, agreeing to meet at a quiet cafe. Their conversation is long and sometimes awkward, filled with apologies and admissions. For the first time, Sarah expresses her own shame, her sense of loss, her realization of the hurt she caused. Emily listens, her heart steady. Forgiveness does not mean forgetting, she reminds herself. It means choosing not to let poison linger where growth is possible. They part with a tentative hug, not out of a need to rekindle what's gone, but as two people finally laying something heavy to rest. Later, Emily surprises herself by feeling lighter, as if releasing Sarah from her heart had dissolved one last chain to the turmoil of the year before. As spring approaches, hints of new beginnings emerge. On a bright Saturday morning, Emily joins Matthew and his young daughter for a stroll at the town's nature preserve. There are no promises, no rush toward romance, just two single parents with parallel stories of loss, sharing laughter over spilled hot chocolate and muddy boots. Emily feels at ease, curious, hopeful, but unhurried. In this chapter of her life, she knows love cannot come from a place of need, but only from fullness. Whether her relationship with Matthew blossoms or remains a gentle friendship, Emily cherishes the opening of her heart, untethered to fear. She makes a conscious choice not to define her happiness by someone else's presence or absence. Her sense of self-worth, once interlaced with the opinions and approval of others, now grows from within. Each day is a quiet assertion. She survived, she healed, and she will choose joy again and again, no matter how it arrives. For the first anniversary of her new life, Emily hosts a small gathering. Julia, Lily, Matthew, and a few neighbors who became supporters when she needed them most. They share laughter, homemade food, even a silly talent show on the back porch. As dusk settles and paper lanterns float skyward, Emily feels deeply at home in her own life. The scars of betrayal remain, but they no longer seem to ache. Instead, they remind her of what she overcame to create a space filled with trust, safety, and love. Late that night, after everyone has gone, Emily walks alone beneath a sky glittering with stars. She closes her eyes, inhales the cold, clean air, and whispers her own benediction. Thank you for the lessons, for the pain that made me braver, for the friends who never let me drift, and for the daughter whose love redeems every day. The past is not erased, she realizes. It is simply put in its rightful place, behind her, but never denied, an integral thread in the tapestry she now weaves forward. The journey is not perfect, but it is real. In closing the past, Emily honors all she has lost, but more importantly, all she has found: resilience, compassion, freedom, and the unassailable truth that her worth was never defined by anyone's approval but her own. As the first crocuses break through the snow, Emily wakes to a house alive with possibility, her spirit lighter, and her heart astonishingly whole. The past has been closed, not sealed away, but gently folded into the story of a woman no longer frightened of storms and utterly unafraid of what comes next.